Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by Ideate Software. Be sure to check out all of their great Revit applications designed to increase your productivity. Welcome, BIM thinkers, to BIMThoughts. We are having a panel discussion. Carl, Dana, you're here.
We are.
Wow.
Happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here too, because happy is good.
The real question, though, Bill, is how did we get here?
Well, we got onto a web browser and launched Zencastr and refreshed like 16 times to get it to work.
Well, Bill, how did you get here? How did you get to BIMThoughts?
How did I get BIMThoughts started?
Yeah.
I started BIMThoughts out of spite.
Spite. Do tell.
Do tell? We were in an all-hands meeting, and my former boss said, I want everyone to talk to at least 300 people in a year. So when you're out and about and you see one of our clients, go in and talk to them and say hello. And so I thought, I don't want to do that. I'd rather talk to more than 300 people a year. So I'm going to show you, and I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to talk to thousands of people a year. And now we're talking to thousands of people a week. So that's how BIMThoughts started, out of spite.
Was this the first podcast that you did? Or did you do something non-BIM related, maybe?
Around the same time, I started two podcasts, one called Mac Thoughts and one called BIM Thoughts. So we started Mac Thoughts and BIM Thoughts at the same time. I thought Mac Thoughts would be more popular than BIM Thoughts when I started because it was a bigger audience.
Yeah.
And so, no, BIM Thoughts
Well,
was
maybe
more
the
popular.
fact that it was more focused is what made you more popular.
Well, less competition at that time. Podcasts were becoming popular in 2015, and there weren't many BIM podcasts around. So, voila, we have a BIM podcast now.
Well, and I think you may be selling yourself a little bit short, Bill, but I think you may have had a larger following in the BIM community than you did in the Mac community at large as well, to help foster BIM Thoughts grow.
Yes, foster. Probably. Yeah, well, BIM Thoughts grew, and it got bigger than Mac Thoughts on like the second episode. It grew pretty quickly. Yeah.
Well, that also may have a little bit to do with who our infamous guest for episode number 2.
Oh, the Jim Balding? And then we had Marcello Scambalori on. Phil Reed. Yeah. And we talked about Revit 2016. I think that's when it started up. Was that when we talked about the new version of Revit.
And it remains to this day to be one of our most popular episodes every year when we talk about the new version of Revit.
Right.
Everyone's keen to know what's going on.
Right. And we used to have, when we first did those, we have Steve Stafford and the timekeeper himself, Paul Aubin, do those episodes. And then I met Harlan, and we decided to have Autodesk do them. Carl, how did you get started in this here BIMsider?
Yeah, tell us how BIMsider.
Yeah, how did the BIMsider start?
The way it really got started was I wanted a location to keep stuff that I learned.
Wow.
So over the course of teaching stuff and meeting people and all of those sort of things, I would learn new things. Or before there was podcasts, there was blogs, or more blogs than podcasts, although that's switched quite a bit now. And so I'd come across these articles and this little bits of information and things that I wanted to catalog, but being on the interwebs, I didn't really know a good way to do that. So I started the BIMsider website and doing my weekly updates, which I did for almost 5 years, as a way to catalog that stuff and be able to go back and get access to it whenever I needed. So if I wanted to learn about something, I would write a blog post about it, put it in there, and then share it with the world. And whether nobody came or ones and twos of people came, it was really about having access to that going in. If it helped somebody else along the way, then it was a win-win, as they like to say.
So do you still go back to your blog and look something up?
I do. I also realize that I wasn't as diligent or as forward thinking when it came to tagging as I could have been. But the ones that I know are of relevance, I kind of know what they are, so I can search the title keywords and I can get back there. But I do still search from stuff from there from time to time. And since then, it's grown as a place or a repository. That's the big word of the day, where I store like my speaking handouts and links to videos and other podcasts and sort of resources for all things kind of BIM just store in one spot. And again, it's a spot where I can always go back and add to it, whether it's through a link or a video or uploading some content. It's where all that stuff lives in one spot.
And then what happened?
Well, then after that, the real goal was to be have a beverage at a conference named after me. And then in 2018 or 2017, when did the BIM cider?
BIM cider, that happened.
Yeah, it was the year after the Moscow Mule.
It was the year after the Moscow Mule. Yes.
That is a great goal, and has now become mine.
Really, to get a drink named after you?
Dynamo? There has to be a drink named Dynamo at a conference, right?
I think the next time that we're all together live at a conference, I think that's it. But the Moscow Mule was easy. Because everybody knows what a Moscow Mule is. The BIM cider was basically you just had to show up at one of the events and order a cider.
Oh, cider, that's easy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cider.
Yes, and then was it called a BIM cider?
Yep.
I'll have to come up with something clever.
But so now Dana, you have some runway. If you've got time to think what goes in, and then you can bring back to like that. I can't think of what's called, but I'm sure we've all seen it. But there's that engineer's guide to mixology, and it was like 10 or 20 different drink recipes, but drawn out on a sheet in AutoCAD. It comes up on social media every once in a while.
So now we need to do one in Revit with all of our conference named drinks, right?
You need to create a Dynamo script that allows you to come up with different drinks.
Ooh, a random drink. You just go up to the Dynamo script and run it.
Yeah.
So speaking of how we got here, I actually was a bartender in a past life.
Really?
Get out!
No way.
Right after college, I actually worked with my brother at his bar. He was a bar manager over in National Harbor, Go Maryland, and worked as a bartender there. I will say I was not very good at it.
Wow.
I was really good at socializing and drinking with my guests, which was legal to do. So, I had a great time, and I had a great time working with my brother, which wasn't the only time that I had worked with my brother or brothers at bars and restaurants before. So, I have a pretty widespread restaurant and bar past.
I always judge a good bartender by how well they can make a old-fashioned.
An old-fashioned, that's a good one. That's a good one. That takes some technique. And I feel like there's just enough, room for personality to come through with an old-fashioned, right? Like using the right type of cherries, and those types of things, like not skimping on those types of things.
Not pouring the cherry juice in there.
Not pouring the cherry juice in there. Using the right types of cubes.
Right.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to it. Best old-fashioned I had was in Nashville.
Really? I'm going to Nashville soon.
I don't remember the bar. I don't remember the name of the bar. I remember the bar, but I don't remember the name. It's in like a industrial complex, and they converted one of the warehouses into a bar.
So you must have had the old-fashioned early on, and so you remember that, but you don't remember anything after that? Is that what you're saying? No,
that's how good the old-fashioned was. Yeah, that was a good time. That was at the Vision conference. So what made you get into the architecture game, Dana?
I got into architecture because, it's a long story. I went into community college and got a business associates right after high school because when I was in high school, I actually got into a local university for dental hygiene.
Really?
And by the time that I graduated, I decided that probably wasn't for me. Amazing profession, I have a lot of friends that went with that path, but I decided that it probably wasn't for me. So I ended up just going to the community college. And with that, I took a lot of art programs. And so I decided, okay, I really want to be an artist. How can I make money being an artist? Because I was in a business degree, right?
I think artists want to know that too.
Well, I decided to go to Virginia Tech into the interior design program and minor in industrial design. So, the design of all things,
right?
Furniture and light fixtures and silverware and all the things that, you as a consumer buy probably are designed by industrial designers. Mm-hmm. Regardless, I was really enamored by that and that design path. But I graduated in the recession. I took a job at an architecture and interiors firm local to DC. And the interiors group just really wasn't ready for Revit. I took a few internships prior to that and really honed my Revit skill, went back to Virginia Tech and taught everybody at Virginia Tech Revit. So I was really ready to continue using Revit. So using CAD just wasn't even really an option for me at that point. And if anybody knows me, I'm a little pushy.
Really?
I'm a little pushy, even as a recent grad. So I was quickly moved over to the architecture side where they were really ready for Revit and started working in base building architecture and working a lot of projects in DC, and moved over to consulting and then started working at a different design firm in DC and migrated them from MicroStation to Revit, which was a lot of fun because I got to create everything from scratch, right? I didn't have any families or templates or anything that I had to clean up. I got to make everything and create all the standards. It was really wonderful.
Wow. And you probably didn't know MicroStation, so you didn't get sucked into doing production work too.
Exactly.
Yes.
100%. And then from there, I really wanted to hone my computational design ability and skill. So I moved over to Smith Group, which has been extremely supportive of that and allowing me to grow as a computational designer. And that's where I am.
Look at you.
That's a snapshot, I guess.
And then we met in St. Louis.
Oh, when did we meet? Yeah, I guess St. Louis. That was, I think we may have done a podcast prior to that. Did we do a podcast prior to that? We'll have to look up. When was St. Louis? Was that 2018? Okay. 2018. Yeah, I feel like it's been a little longer than that. I don't know. But, conferences, you meet a lot of people. That's what
it's about. It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
I think Carl and I finally met in Chicago, somewhere outside of Chicago.
Oh, we met before that, Bill.
Probably.
Well, the reason I remember it very specifically, and the reason I remember it very specifically is because this is when I was just starting at Imagine It. Joe Eichenseer. Yes. Joe Eichenseer worked with or knew or somehow was affiliated with you and with Lonnie. And it was 2013. We were in RTC Vancouver.
Oh, Vancouver.
And it was the Vancouver, and it was the sponsor event. So if you were a speaker or sponsor, we went up to this secret little room in the hotel that we had to wait an extra hour to get into because a famous movie star was late checking out, and I don't remember who the movie star was.
It was Tom Hanks.
It very well could have been. It was somebody important.
It was in Wesley's suite.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Yes. Yeah. And but that's where I remember meeting you because it was the first time I met Phil Reed, and I met you and your wife, and we were sitting around chatting. And then, of course, there was at conferences from then on, you were working with different people, different things. BIM9, Space 9, the 9th planet in the world. There for a while. But
BIM9 was from Cloud 9.
That was it. Yes,
Cloud 9.
That's how I knew you. Was because Joe knew you and Lonnie.
Yeah.
And so that's how it clicked for me. But it may have been a while before we actually had like a meaningful conversation.
Yes.
Aside from me just going, that's Bill. He's awesome.
I am awesome.
It's true.
Yeah. in my own mind. That's funny.
How did you get into architecture, Carl?
How did I get into architecture? Well,
or technology in general?
It's a similar but different path than you took, Dana. And it all began a long, long time ago, is what I was trying to say. In 1988, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yes.
Do you want to know how old I was then? Or no, should I not tell you?
You probably weren't even around.
I was 3.
You were 3.
Yeah.
See, there you go.
Well, see, 3.
But we did a class tour. Our grade 8 class did a tour of the high school. And we walked through the drafting class. And on the top shelf all around the room was the graduating student's final project, which was a model made out of foam core and the silly sandpaper slash I don't know what it is that you use to make like train models. They had trees, and I thought, how cool would it be if you spent all day, every day, just making those models? What do I have to do to get to do that? Well, this is an architectural design class. Learn how to draft, learn AutoCAD. The sky is your oyster, and or probably the ocean's your oyster. I don't know, but that's how I got started. So when I went to high school, I took all the drafting programs, all of the AutoCAD programs, all that stuff, and then went into community college and got a architectural technology degree and sort of went from there.
Did you make any of those models?
We
for
did.
Work. Making models in school is one thing. Making a model for work and getting paid for it's a whole nother thing.
I don't think I ever did. Now, the one company that I worked with, where I got into the technology side, we did have a models room, and we did make models a little bit. So I think I may have helped out with one. But that was right at the time when we were transitioning from physical to digital. And I jumped full core into the digital side.
Wow. Good you.
Which is the cooler side. Like, let's be real.
Oh yeah, but I got hired to work in production design, which was not my cup of tea. But yeah, working on learning to create families, and that they were also migrating at the time from architectural desktop, which is what it was called then, now AutoCAD architecture. They had just migrated to that about a year before, from plain old AutoCAD into that. And they were smart enough to go, let's get out of here quick and get into Revit.
Yeah, just when I got AutoCAD architecture figured out, we jumped to Revit.
ADT, as we'd like to call it back in the day.
ADT, right.
That was a scary beast.
Architectural desktop. The first version was horrible. I don't think it got good until 3.3.
So when I first started with the base building company, or I should say the division of that company, right? I migrated from interiors to base building. I tried to work as much as I could in Revit, but there was a few times where they were like, we need to change all the level to level heights. And, because we in DC have a very strict building height restriction. So, and change the entire layout. We're going to connect these 2 buildings and do all these crazy things. And so with the team and the resources available at the time, I was forced to do like 60 something crazy options in AutoCAD.
Oof.
But that is the only time I've ever produced anything in AutoCAD.
Really? Everything else has been Revit, huh?
Everything else has been Revit.
Wow. It's interesting because nowadays, these young kids getting out of school, they don't even know AutoCAD.
No.
They know Revit and Rhino.
That was always the trouble when you were back in the day working on part-time AutoCAD, part-time Revit, is that the shortcuts and the commands are close, but not quite the same.
Not close enough.
Yeah, and so it would drive you nuts. You'd spend a day in AutoCAD, then a day in Revit, and you'd want to pull your hair out. Well, I did, as you can tell.
Yeah, didn't grow back.
No, it's very frustrating. Very frustrating, especially for those of us who have the side brain, right? It's like switching those types of things really, really hurts us. But how do you feel about that, Bill? How do you feel about kids not knowing AutoCAD? Do you think that's a limitation in the production side of things at certain firms, maybe?
I hope not.
I would want to say that I would want recent grads to be innovators, right?
I would think it's a plus on both sides. I think it's a plus for the for the firm that has embraced Revit and is using Revit, now they can hire an intern or hire someone fresh out of school and get that person who's eager to work and get started and teach them the ways of architecture. And but they're getting valuable work experience, and the company's getting production out of them. And hopefully that company, if they find that person is worth a darn, pays them worth a darn after the first few months or year or what have you. So if you're just starting out at a company and you're not being paid worth a darn, then prove you're worth a darn and see if you get a raise. If you don't, then look for somewhere that will give you what you're worth.
Agreed. Here.
And then the youngsters are going to firms that don't have Revit. They're most likely thinking about how they're going to transition to Revit. And they've been thinking about that for the last 16 years. And so they're either going to transition right away because you're there now to help them, or they're not, and then you need to go find a firm that does so you can get into Revit again.
I think the real question should be, Dana, though, not whether or not it's an issue if they know AutoCAD, but more whether or not they know drafting and how to put together a set of drawings and a set of documents. Mm-hmm. Because as much as we would love to be just using the model and just working with Revit, we all know that's not the case. That we still have to have documents. We still have to have those PDFs.
Right.
And so it's one thing to come out of school and be able to make any software hum. A lot of the kids are coming today working with software is easy, but understanding what you need to do with the software and how a set of drawings are together, how a building is built. I think some of that is getting left behind in this day and age where they're just tasked with learn Revit because Revit is BIM and BIM is everything. And if you can do that, you know what you're doing. But that's not the case.
The ends to the means, right?
Right. Revit is not architecture.
No. And in fact, a lot of times when people, project teams and different people, architects, etc., come to me and they say, how do I build this in Revit? I say, how is it built? How is it the contractor going to build it? Is it a door or is it a curtain system?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Does it want to be in a wall or does it want to be a panel?
Does it want to be hosted? Right. Does it not want to be hosted?
How are you going to schedule it? How are you going to tag it? How are you going to tell them to build it?
And then there's even more to architecture than just drawing. There's project management. There's code people. There's people who just do construction documents. There's people who deal with the municipalities. There's going to get work, doing proposals. I mean, there's all sorts of things involved in an architecture firm.
Well, and I think that the real beauty lies in the firms that allows interns and new employees, new, professionals to really find their niche, find what they're good at, find what they like to do. What is it that you want to learn? Give them time to learn that.
Right. And it's also up to the person to ask to learn what they're interested in.
And be motivated enough to do that.
Because nobody's going to give you anything unless you ask for it. Because they may think you're just happy sitting there doing construction details.
People know when I'm not happy.
And that's why you're doing computational design now.
That's why I'm doing computational design and loving what I'm doing.
Right, because people know.
Because I'm going to be heard.
You are going to be heard, and that's
on
fine.
BIMThoughts or otherwise, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so don't give up. Never surrender. Tell your boss what you want to do, and hopefully you'll get to do that one day.
And I think that there's enough resources out there now to even go to your boss and say, look at this program or look at this, 3-session, 8-hour course on Grasshopper that I want to take, and I want to, do this for my professional development.
Right.
I think that in itself it shows a lot of motivation and drive, and that any good boss would say, how do we make this happen? Let me find out how we can make this happen for you.
And how you can make that easier on your boss is to come up with a plan of how and why you want to implement it.
Exactly.
Before you even ask for the training. And even if the training is say, hey, if this works out, I want to do this, this, and this. But going to the training is going to help me get that done quicker because I can learn about the product and figure out if it needs to go to the next step or not. And if it does go to the next step, I know what to do on the next steps in order to get it implemented.
Making it relevant is absolutely important. Very good point.
You gotta have a plan of not only why you want to do something, but how that something is going to help the firm.
Whether it's your project or whether it's the firm as a whole or whatever it might be.
New chairs, stand-up desks, parking spaces, covered parking, whatever, you name it. It's got to be able to help the firm.
Carl, you must have a closing thought.
Is it that time already? It's been an auburn?
We're at an auburn.
It is crazy. The aubins come and then they
go. They come and go. And when you're Paul, they come and go twice as fast because you listen to this at double time.
I wonder if he even understood that.
That must drive him insane when he goes to conferences that people talk so slow.
It's just he's just such a smart guy. He can just process stuff twice as fast as the rest of us. That's all.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's got to be.
Huh.
But as far as a final thought goes, I would think that as Bill said, never give up, never surrender, but also don't think that it's going to be a straight line from A to B to get here. Whether here is having your own podcast, your own YouTube channel, speaking on BIMThoughts, or working in design technology as we all do. My road from getting into architecture, as we say, to actually working in architecture, there was about a 10-year span in between where I had lots of fringe jobs to get here. I worked at a company that made custom curved stairs. So in the architectural vein, I used the AutoCAD that I learned to design the stairs, but I learned lots of other things when I worked in that capacity. I worked for a company that worked and made custom entry doors. Like, we're talking big honkin' solid oak or mahogany or maple, like fancy $1 million home entry doors. And I did the design on AutoCAD, and then I would put it into G code and go out and run the CNC machines, and which was really cool because you would start with a drawing in the morning and have a finished product in the afternoon. But all of these little things and all these little experiences ended up getting me into an architectural role at a commercial architecture firm, and then from there I get into the design technology side, and then everything sort of took off from there to where we are. So it certainly might not be an A to B road, but if there's something that you want to do and passionate, and if you don't know what that is yet, don't worry, it'll come, and one day it'll just click.
Yep.
And then you're there.
And you're like, how did I get here? Who are these people?
And just like that, Bill brings it right back home.
Oh, that's what I do. Because I am home.
What about some of your odd jobs, Bill? I think that's a great closing
statement. My odd jobs?
Yeah, what are some random jobs you've had throughout your life?
I did designs for video stores, major videos. Be Kind, Rewind. Nice. And what else did I do? I did house plans. That was an experience. And then the recession hit, and then I had to luckily I got to work for a reseller.
I was going to say, we've all worked for resellers, right?
I worked for a reseller for 13 years.
I did almost 8.
Uh-huh.
What would you do, Dana? A year?
Oh, working with resellers. I worked with resellers. Oh, goodness. I guess 2 years?
2 years?
Maybe 2 years. It was a lot of travel when I was
yes.
When I was at Microdesk. I was spending a lot of time on a train and plane and automobiles.
Yep. US CAD was a lot of travel.
It wears on you.
My first reseller, Holman's of Nevada, not much travel.
I imagine it was a ton of travel, but that was part I liked.
I don't know if I liked the travel or not.
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the long travel.
I drove most everywhere.
See, I was flying for most cases, and if it was like a training engagement where I was gone for a week, that was fine. What I found taxing was the marketing events or the road shows where you'd be in 5 places in 4 days. That I found a little more, because it was like you wouldn't get unsettled or unpacked. But if I had to go to a city or a new city and spend a week there, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I would usually go down I would drive to LA on Monday, do training on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then drive back on Friday.
The thing about traveling that was really tough for me is that you realize how much during the week that you're able to get done in terms of your adulting tasks, right? Like your laundry, your groceries, your random things that you just can't do unless you're at home, right?
Right.
True story.
It's also really hard to have a routine. I realized during that part of my life that I really like a routine. I like to work out the same times, the same days of the week. I like a routine. I like that we record BIMThoughts the same time every week. I like those things that are very regimented in my life. It allows me to build around that.
I'm in that same boat. I think that's why we like the technology side of things.
Absolutely.
We did a trip one time when I was working for Friedmutter to all the different cities to do some sort of upgrade or what have you. And so we flew to, it was just Atlantic City, New York, and then we went to Boston for API training. That's where I met a lot of the Autodesk people. And so we flew to Philly, got a car, and went to Atlantic City. And then we took a car from Atlantic City to New York, and then a train from New York to Boston, and then to Manchester.
Oh, that's cool. That's a nice little trip.
That was a nice trip.
And I think that's one really nice thing about the East Coast is that you have the trains and the different, kind of routes that you can take in that respect. There's even within Virginia, the Virginia Railway Express.
Yeah, there's no trains here in the West.
That's surprising.
Be nice to have a train to LA. That would be great.
Trains are much more civilized than planes, that is for sure.
Yes.
Well, I think it's just like the getting through security, the, having to wait at the gate, like all of those things.
Yeah.
Usually you can get to your train like 10 minutes before it leaves.
Yeah, there's not security on trains, is there?
A lot of the time you can just, get your ticket at the train station. That's a lot of the time what I would do.
Yeah.
Just wait till I got to the Amtrak station.
Right.
And get my ticket then.
Right. Yeah, there's no TSA pre-check and all that other crap.
Super easy. Okay, my final thought. My
final thought.
Random odd jobs and how I got here before architecture.
Okay.
So, in high school, I actually worked as a 411 operator.
Really?
Do you remember? You guys probably remember better than I do.
That's interesting information.
And then from there, I was staffed at a staffing firm. They, put you out like Mantech and all of that. I was at a retirement firm doing data entry, so like just like putting in people's Roth information and stuff like that. Then I started as an admin at said staffing firm. Mm-hmm. And from there, I started as a recruiter for a staffing firm. So I kind of built my way up through the staffing firm, right? Mm-hmm. And then I went to Virginia Tech because I was like, this is not for me. I do not want to work at an office at all. Then at Virginia Tech, I worked at the bookstore on campus for all 4 years.
Really?
I was at the returns desk. So if you needed to return a book, you came to me.
Oh.
What is this noise? Because you remember how much books cost?
Oh my gracious.
The $300 chemistry book?
Yeah, and then you go to return it or sell it back to Dana and you get $50 for it.
Yeah, totally.
I can give you $60 because this page right here has a dog ear on it.
Yeah, that was me.
That was you.
For 4 years. And I also cleaned churches on the side. I'll say I'm not a religious person, but as an architectural person, there are some really beautiful churches in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yep.
And it allowed me to just like listen to music and zone out and like do nothing really, and vacuum. Yeah. And then after college, because of the recession, I actually worked at a paint store as a color consultant. So people would actually, go into the paint store and they'd be like, I want to paint my front door. You want to come to my house and see my front door and tell me what color to paint it?
Sure. It's always red, isn't it?
No. No, I did all kinds of funky colors. And I also, it was like you worked with the individual to figure out their taste, of course. Okay. That was like part of your job, right? If somebody didn't want a teal door, I wouldn't encourage it.
No. Anybody come back to the store and say, we painted the door yellow and I hate it?
No, because I worked with them, Like maybe you should get a sample. Do a sample first, type of thing. It was a pretty fun job, and I actually we'll post a picture of it to this. I from that store got a lot of paint chips. It's actually a Canadian company, Carl, called C2 Paint.
Yeah.
It's all, it's a really, really beautiful paint company. They don't use black and white. They have really, really rich color.
Well, I would hope they wouldn't just have black and white paint.
And so I have, their whole library of paint in their little painted cards. They're not printed.
Oh, they're painted cards.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something awesome with all of these paint chips. So you guys will have to look in the comments and look at the piece of art I created. I call it Desert Rain.
Desert Rain.
And also, while you're down there, let me know DanamoBIM drink for the next conference. Your thoughts?
Yeah, let us know your thoughts. And on that note, I'm gonna hit the stop button.